A college girl goes to visit her boyfriend at school late at night, only to give him an unexpected surprise right as they chatting. Her boyfriend colleagues suddenly return. Natalie, seeing this, quickly closes the door and quickly puts on her clothes. But the colleague still tried to barge in, staring at Natalie on the bed with greedy eye and teasing her rudely. The boyfriend was a bit angry when he heard this, asked the captain to take his teammates out. They quickly went out even though the team leader had promised not to do anything. Finally, the boyfriend got angry and kicked the colleague out. They thought this was the end. Surprisingly, the colleagues refused to give up, joined forces and beat her boyfriend. He got down on the ground and took off Natalie pants. His boyfriend couldn't stand it, but what he didn't expect was that other teammates had joined the other guy's side. They not only punched and kicked him together, but also beat Natalie unconscious after looking at Natalie lying there motionless, her eyes filled with greed. Right when Natalie was about to have something happen, her boyfriend woke up. He tried his best to restrain his colleague to let Natalie go quickly. Natalie didn't have time to give in. She stood up from the group and ran for her life, hoping to call the rescue team to rescue her strong-willed boyfriend. Barefoot, Natalie ran for 9 kilometers in ice and snow, but in the end she still couldn't stand it. The cold caused bleeding due to frozen lungs, and because there were very few people in the winter, Natalie's body was not discovered by hunters until a few days later. By this time her whole body was covered with frozen bones, but her eyes were still there. The government sent a female FBI police officer to investigate Natalie's case. They used a saw to separate Natalie's body from Tuet and examined it at the forensic police station. Currently sharp, Natalie was subjected to violence before her death by many people, unfortunately. The cause of her death was due to bleeding from the lungs. This means that case can be handled as in the case of freezing to death. Fate can no longer cannot reconcile her. She decided to persuade the medical examiner to write the cause of death as murder so that she could continue investigating the case to find the truth. She decided to go to Natalie's house to look for clues and wanted to see if she could find out something from Natalie's family, but Natalie's father knew nothing about his daughter's situation. She was 18 years old and he chose to believe her. She and I were wrong. Diane was a little angry and wanted to ask her mother about the situation, but Natalie's father mysteriously pointed to the bedroom and the policeman accompanying her called her to stop and advised her not to go, thinking she needed permission of her father. But when she opened the bedroom door, she was extremely shocked by the scene before her ears. Natalie's mother was actually cutting herself with a knife, as if she had lost the feeling of pain and didn't care anymore, that when she moaned how difficult it was for that family to lose their daughter, deep in their hearts they were much less peaceful than it seemed but couldn't tell anyone. They were extremely regretful. She wanted to apologize for understanding, just made a mistake. At this time, the hunter who found the body suddenly came over. The man carefully drilled the fire hole, then weighed the gunpowders accurately, poured the shell into the waste, then weighed the bullet to confirm whether the weight met the standard or not. No, finally a carefully crafted bullet. The man named Sai. The reason he was able to make such bold bullet was because he was the only legal hunter within a few hundred miles. His job is to investigate every day and hunt animals that eat the residents' livestock. But that day when he was on patrol, he suddenly found a body. He quickly realized that this was actually his brother daughter. She is also daughter best friend. Unfortunately, Cory's daughter was brutally assaulted and left behind. Tuet did not expect that her best friend would also end up like this. Cory's has these feeling. I immediately called the police and the police department reported the incident to the FBI. They quickly dispatched the most recent agent to investigate the case, but the moment people saw him, he was gone, both disappointed. One expected that it was a female agent and she clearly did not understand the situation here. Not only could she not find a parking space, even the clothes she wore were the thinnest costume clothes. If here and in 2 hours she would freeze to death, but Dunn was more eager to handle the case than anyone else. Just got out of the car. She couldn't wait to see the body, completely ignoring the storm raging outside right now. Cory couldn't stand it. Thanks to my mother to find her daughter cold clothes to wear when she got dressed and walked out. She was a bit dizzy. He thought he saw his daughter again, but he quickly calmed down and took her there. Discovering that there was a lot of snow outside, the body could only be moved by sled. The scene was covered with snow. There was no time to sigh. Seeing that the lower abdomen of the body was stained with red blood, this meant that there was a certain connection between the cause of death and sexual assault, so Jean asked colleague to take the body to the forensic department for autopsy. First, Zen and Cory worked together to investigate. Since Natalie's parents were dead, they knew it's true that Natalie has a better relationships with her younger brother. Maybe he knows something. But the younger brother plays around outside his friend every day. He also makes friend. As soon as he knocked on the door, he asked a question outside. The other person took out a bottle of spray from his pocket. He sprayed it on their face impatiently, and the colleague who was sprayed until foaming at the mouth couldn't wake up immediately. He seemed ready to raise lobby. Tuet next to him patiently waited at the back door. Sure enough, the attackers quickly escaped, but Cory knocked him down with a sharp blow. It must be said that the more ginger comes out, the spicier the other side moans and is not idle. Finding a scene of drug addiction, there was a gun in the hallway. Diane quickly shot to protect herself. She couldn't bear to see him die. She quickly asked her colleague to call for help, but her colleagues refused. Mr. Bao, This is a cold land with a residential library service. The fastest ambulance can take an hour arrive. I'm afraid Conan edition won't last long. There's no need to waste medical resources. After speaking, he immediately took Duyan out. Let the addicts die on their own. Maybe in this cold snow, death can become as light as a snowflake at the back door. You guys started asking Natalie younger brother. At first, he especially despised it. But after hearing the explanations about his sister's death, he suddenly collapsed. He didn't expect that. A few days ago, he saw his sister at home again, which was also the last time they saw each other. When he was born, his younger brother cried bitterly. He had been rebellious since childhood. This time, he cooperated with the police to handle the case innocently, obediently. He immediately revealed his identity. His sister boyfriend told Cory he knew about his sister's death, but to his surprise, Natalie boyfriend actually also logged out. They investigated an affair a long time. They finally discovered that their niece pig boyfriend was a worker drilling an oil well nearby. They thought it was a love affair between lovers, but when Ren arrived at the construction site to investigate, they realized that there was something going on. Something is wrong with all the workers. I heard after the snowstorm Natalie's body was found in a pile of snow. What do you say? I heard her named on the radio. I know, but I never mentioned her name. Suddenly the atmosphere became tense. Everyone pulled out their guns. Realizing the situation was about to become uncontrollable, Duyan quickly stopped this. This is private land. The police really don't have much power, they just have fate. Belongings to the FBI can talk a bit, but this caused dissatisfaction among police colleagues. They think the coast is a bit biased towards the workers. Coast does not want to explain further if the staff take him straight to the cabin. She want to find looking for clues, but she knocked on the door for a long time and no one came to open the door. She couldn't help but be suspicious and asked the worker if there was really someone inside. The worker didn't answer. Instead, he pretended to call the door and went inside to avoid away from the exit. Then everyone in the lake pulled out their guns and started to fight. First the police occupied the Thuong Phong, shooting at the workers, but suddenly a man got out of the RV and started shooting with a machine gun. All the policemen were knocked to the ground and had no choice but to pull out their guns and want to fight back on the spot, but she was controlled by the workers. He pointed the gun at her and saw her about to die. Duet suddenly heard a voice. The gun shot down the coastal worker, who quickly took advantage of the chaos and hid under the RV. Immediately after that, 2 more workers were knocked down one after another. In the end, only 2 workers hid in the LV. Not long after, another one was shot and now there was only 1 worker left. He couldn't resist and wanted to break the window and escape, but he groaned and heard her climb up quickly and tried to knock him down, but the man stubbornly stood up and continued to run away. Then the sniper who had just shot came there. UT turned out that today, when he was surveying the dire wolf, a body was unexpectedly found. It was Pit niece boyfriend. This made him realize it turned out that the person who murdered his niece was not Pit at all, so he rushed over. Unfortunately he was still 1 step late, only fate was saved. Asked him to quickly apprehend the fleeing workers, even though this meant he wouldn't take the workers back to court. Instead he would take private revenge, but Duyan agreed. She understood, in a cold place, so eating 1 patty at a time was the right, decided Dan not. It wasn't long before Key found the escaped worker in the forest and brought him to the top of the mountain so he could be like his niece running barefoot in the snowman. The worker didn't run for long. He struggled and fell down. I looked at his body and then went down the mountain. With a bit of regret, he found his niece's father, who was also his good brother, and told him about his revenge, even though Cory didn't talk about the process. The brothers understood because their daughter both died the same violent death. Cory failed to catch her daughter killer but at least got revenge for her poor niece. Today movie is over. Please remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next movie. Bye.